Scattered across America are more than 60 places unlike anywhere else. The national parks. Most people can only name a handful and never see the rest. But these are the wildest corners of the country. Caves that drop deeper than our tallest towers stand. Forests turn to solid stone. Deserts that only wake after dark. Ground still burning underneath. Each one was set aside to be kept exactly as it was before any of us arrived. And every one of them can turn on you in a heartbeat. How does anything survive out here, through cold that splits rock? Through heat that could end you in an afternoon? And how do the animals endure what would finish almost anything else? From the deepest caverns to the highest peaks, these are the astonishing stories of America's last wild places and the creatures that call them home. Saguaro National Park stretches across the desert, a place where giant human-shaped cacti seem to fill every view. Here lives the iconic saguaro cactus, a symbol of the American Southwest. These towering plants are masters of survival, able to endure droughts so harsh they shrink like sponges, only to swell back to life after a rare desert storm. Some even grow arms late in life, not because of age, but as a response to extreme stress. And when one finally falls, its skeletal ribs can stand for years, which causes them to shine white under the moon. Local stories whisper that saguaros sometimes bend overnight, as if the desert itself is alive and moving when no one is watching. High above, hawks and falcons circle the sky, but one bird stands out, the tiny American kestrel, carefully watching a desert that is more alive and mysterious than it seems. It stands out with a rusty back, blue wings, and black marks on its face like streaks of eye paint. Unlike most birds, the male has blue wings, while the female has brown, which makes them easy to tell apart. Interestingly, the kestrel sports fake eyes on the back of its head, dark spots that trick predators into thinking it is always watching. It can hover almost motionless over the park, like a miniature drone scanning the ground below. Then, with remarkable precision, it spots a lizard, grasshopper, or rodent and drops straight down in a sudden attack. 1 second the ground is clear, the next, its prey has vanished. Despite its small size, this bird is fearless, confronting crows and larger raptors, flashing wings and tail like a tiny fighter, refusing to back down. As it drifts and hovers over the saguaros and dry washes, this bold little hunter reveals just how alive the Sonoran Desert truly is. Though the terrain appears empty, the soil hides seeds, insect eggs and sleeping frogs that spring to life after rain, as if switched back on. Some plants survive the harsh heat by shedding all their leaves quickly, almost as if pressing a low power mode button. At night, bats visit saguaro flowers, carrying pollen across the desert to ensure the next generation of giants. Many animals share the same cactus over time. Woodpeckers drill the holes, owls move in later, and snakes sometimes climb up in pursuit. The desert works like a slow, strange machine, where one animal's home, leftovers or droppings become food or shelter for another. When a black-tailed jackrabbit bounds into view, that hidden web of life springs into motion, which makes the desert feel wilder than ever. Its ears act like radar dishes, picking up the slightest sounds and releasing extra heat, which turns this small rabbit into a heat-proof sprint machine built for survival in harsh conditions. Even more impressive, its strong back legs let it jump in long zigzags, confusing predators and turning open ground into a personal obstacle course. And just when the jackrabbit proves it can outrun almost anything, Denali National Park and Preserve is the reminder that no animal can outrun the mountain itself. This is a huge protected area centred on North America's tallest peak, home to abundant wildlife and dramatic landforms. The giant mountains shape the weather, snow, and where animals can move, which gives the park the feel of a world running on its own rules. Remarkably, climbers can stand in bright sun at the base, while the summit disappears into its own cloud cap, as if the peaks were wearing a hat. Glaciers move and crack slowly, yet they can suddenly drop ice, or open crevasses without warning, so even experts cross them with extreme caution. On quiet days, low booming or popping sounds rise from ice and rock with no storm in sight, hinting at hidden forces at work. When caribou herds thread their way between ice, rock and brush, they reveal how animals must constantly stay on the move to keep up with a world that is always changing. Each of them has a built-in snowshoe on every foot, with hooves that spread out on soft ground and then act like sharp ice cleats when the surface hardens and slickens. In addition, their nose is not just for smelling, it actually warms the freezing air before it hits their lungs, like a tiny heater hidden in their face. Both males and females grow antlers, and females keep theirs longer into winter so they can push others away from the best food spots in the snow. During winter darkness, caribou eyes change colour, shifting how they catch light so they can see better when the sun barely shows. They can also lower the temperature of their legs, so the cold bites less, almost as if they were wearing natural thermal boots built into their own bodies. As a big herd moves across the area, it does more than travel. It tramples snow, drops nutrients, and reshapes the tundra like a slow-living snowplow. And above these, the one thing that never moves, but still rules the scene, is Denali, which soars far higher than anything around it. Near the top, the air is so thin and wild that climbers can get brain fog, see things, or lose track of simple tasks, even while trying to boil water. Meanwhile, winds near the summit can tear tents, snap metal poles, and erase fresh footprints in seconds, making a full campsite almost vanish between checks. The mountain has two main tops, and many people do not realise that most climbers only stand on one of them, while the other sits off to the side like a second, quieter boss. And down below, where the horned lark lives and feeds, this giant peak becomes more than just rock and ice. It becomes home. Interestingly, this tiny bird sports a black mask and miniature horn-like feathers on its head, making it look more like a mini comic book character than a typical songbird. It builds its nest right on open ground, then lines it with bits of grass, fur, and even tiny stones, turning a shallow scrape into a hidden crib that can disappear into the dirt. When harsh weather hits, horned larks may huddle in small groups on the snow, all facing the same way like tiny ground-level penguins, waiting out the wind. And despite living in such a challenging environment, their song is surprisingly sweet and high, which floats over bare rock and gravel, where most people expect only silence. As these birds endure cold and emptiness, Haleakala answers with a volcanic giant, where heat, clouds, and height rewrite the rules of life. It is a protected high-elevation park on Maui, wrapped around a massive volcano that rises from the ocean floor to the clouds. In fact, if you measure it from the sea floor to its summit, it can rival, or even surpass, Mount Everest in total height, since most of the mountain hides underwater. At the summit, thin air leaves visitors short of breath even on paved paths, yet the park still shelters rare species like the nene goose and the once blooming Haleakala silversword. Adding to the surprise, scientists have found that the volcano has not only worn down over time, but has also risen slightly in recent years, showing that this sleeping giant is still changing. According to local tradition, the summit is the House of the Sun, where the demigod Maui once slowed the sun, a story many still use to explain why sunrise here feels almost unreal. And with Haleakala crater sitting like a giant bite taken out of the volcano, nearly everything in the park seems to pull your eyes straight toward its rim. At first glance, this crater looks like a blast hole, but it was actually formed when two large valleys slowly eroded inward from opposite sides until they met. Inside, more than a dozen cinder cones rise from the floor, like smaller volcanoes stacked inside a larger one, which gives the ground a frozen bubble look. In this harsh environment, rare plants such as the silversword grow for years before dying after a single giant bloom. which turns patience into a one-time spectacle. Meanwhile, the air along the rim stays thin enough that a hike down and back up can leave even fit visitors dizzy and gasping. And once you step away from this Mars-like edge, the next surprise waits below in the green, a sudden plunge to the tall, pouring drop of Waimoku Falls. In fact, it drops so far that on windy days the water can stretch out, twist sideways, or even turn to mist before it ever reaches the rocks below. Meanwhile, the cliff face beside the falls is always crumbling a little, with fresh scars and fallen boulders, so every heavy rainstorm quietly reshapes the wall. Hikers are warned to keep their distance, as loose rocks can tumble without notice, and injuries have occurred when chunks of cliff broke free near the pool. Along the trail, bamboo sways and bangs together in the wind, sounding like giant wooden drums echoing through the forest. And as the stream leaves Waimoku Falls behind, it slows and settles into the pools of Ohio, where the drama of a single massive drop turns into a series of smaller, playful cascades. Its famous name, Seven Sacred Pools, is actually just a marketing nickname, because, plot twist, there are more than 7 pools. Nearby old stone walls and terraces reveal that people once farmed and lived around this gulch, so today's swim stop sits inside what used to be a working food and water system. And as you look up, the Japanese white-eye is often one of the first birds you notice, a tiny green flash weaving through the branches overhead. That clean white ring around its eye is so bold that its face is easy to remember after just one look. Remarkably, it can hang upside down from thin twigs to sip nectar or grab insects, turning every flower and leaf around the area into a snack bar. Often travelling in busy little flocks, these birds can make an entire tree crown appear to shimmer, as if tiny green sparks have come to life. Despite their small size, they play a major role in the forest, spreading seeds and sometimes carrying diseases to native birds. After branches buzz with restless wings, Glacier Bay National Park appears in stark contrast, an expanse of glaciers, freezing seas, and silence broken by cracking ice. Not long ago, this bay lay under a single sheet of ice, but in just a short time, it retreated enough for large ships to sail where ice once ruled. In places, tidewater fronts suddenly drop slabs into the ocean, slamming the water hard enough to rock heavy boats. Meanwhile, harbour seals turn drifting ice chunks into secret berth platforms, so broken flows double as hidden nurseries above frigid water. As the ice retreats, scientists watch new plants and animals move in fast, transforming scraped, lifeless rock into living ground much sooner than expected. Below the surface, the fjords plunge steeply, so whales can dive along underwater walls that fall from shoreline to deep water in moments. Long before science, local indigenous stories told of the ice surging forward to bury villages after a girl disrespected it and called it like a dog. At the end of a narrow frozen arm, the cold concentrates into a taller, brighter face of the Marjorie Glacier. Its ice glows a vivid hue, packed so tightly that it swallows all other colours and reflects only its own light. Scientists have drilled and studied its ice and found bubbles of old air trapped inside, meaning each core is like a time capsule of past atmospheres frozen in place. And just a short distance away, Johns Hopkins Glacier turns another arm of the bay into a closed arena of ice, cliffs, and thunderous collapses. Unlike most nearby glaciers that are shrinking, this one is actually pushing forward, so the ice here is not retreating. It is advancing into its own bay. Calving is so intense that the water in front can look like a solid carpet of crushed ice, which makes navigation almost impossible for small boats. The surrounding rock walls amplify every crack and fall, so a single block breaking off can sound like distant artillery rolling through the fjord. Because of the ice, noise, and tight space, access is heavily restricted, leaving most visitors far from one of the bay's most aggressive glaciers. And above all this chaos, a tiny figure, the Arctic tern, slices across the sky, tracing its enormous migratory journeys over the frozen theatre below. Over its lifetime, this bird can fly enough miles to go to the moon and back several times, even though it weighs less than a smartphone. In this area, this bird fearlessly attacks much larger creatures that approach its nest, including humans, dive bombing with enough force that visitors sometimes wear hats for protection. It can hover briefly, then drop to snatch a fish near the surface before the prey even reacts. These terns often return to the same nesting grounds year after year, meaning a bird screaming overhead today may have patrolled the same skies above someone else decades ago. Meanwhile, in Petrified Forest National Park in Arizona, whole trees stand as colourful rock, a shocking flip from the flying life above the glaciers. These logs are no longer wood at all. They are nearly solid quartz, so walking here feels like moving through a forest of giant gemstones. When they break, they snap cleanly like glass rather than splintering, often revealing crystal patterns and rings hidden inside each chunk. Bright reds, purples, and yellows come from tiny metal elements locked in the stone, turning old trunks into what looks more like sliced candy than fossils. For decades, people who took even small pieces sent them back with letters blaming the rock for car crashes, sickness, and money problems, asking the park to stop the so-called curse. Amid the rocky terrain, the greater roadrunner often appears first as a blur of feathers and tail, and sprints through this stone forest like it owns the place. In fact, it runs so fast that it often catches lizards, snakes, and even small birds on foot, and it can overpower venomous snakes by smashing them against rocks before eating them. On colder mornings, they spread the dark feathers on their back like a built-in solar panel and soak up sunlight to turn it into free body heat. And just beyond these rapid dashes between stone logs, the land opens into sweeping bands of colour, known as the painted desert. And just beyond those rapid dashes between stone logs, the land opens into sweeping bands of colour, known as the painted desert. Within each stripe, you can read traces of long-gone rivers, lakes and forests, stacked in layers, almost like pages in a giant comic book. At dusk, some visitors even report odd lights or passing shadows along the ridges, only to look again and find empty air. Under one sky, the hills can seem dull and flat, then moments later explode into reds and purples when the light shifts. And within this quiet maze of colour, small hunters like the burrowing owl subtly turn the soft ground into home. Amazingly, it looks almost cartoon-like, with bright yellow eyes, long, skinny legs, and a tiny round head that spins fast while the body barely moves. Rather than perching in trees, it lives underground, often reusing tunnels dug by other animals. These owls stay active both day and night, bobbing and bowing when alarmed, sometimes hissing or rattling like a snake to scare threats away. They even scatter dry animal dung around their burrow to attract beetles and insects. A pair can raise a whole crowd of chicks at one burrow, and once the young grow bigger, they line up outside like grumpy, fluffy guards watching every move. Altogether, this mix of underground living, clever hunting and unusual calls makes them one of the desert's most inventive and surprising predators. From these watchful ground owls in painted badlands, the land shifts to stone walls and long-standing rooms at Aztec Ruins National Monument. Despite the name, Aztec is entirely inaccurate. It's just a label guessed by early settlers that stuck, applied to a site built by a culture with no connection to it. Some original roof beams still stand after centuries, and scientists found that their growth rings matched those of far-away Chaco great houses, as if the sites followed the same plan. At the centre, the Great Kiva was rebuilt from the remaining clues, and when people step inside, many feel sudden quiet, dizziness, or strong emotion, even if they were joking just moments before. Beyond the walls, finds like parrots and bright stones from distant lands reveal wide trade networks stretching hundreds of miles long before modern roads existed. In certain rooms, entrances appear deliberately sealed with offerings left behind, which suggests that the final users chose to shut down these spaces rather than simply abandon them. And just outside, along dirt paths and brush, red foxes patrol with bright eyes and fresh tracks, moving through a place where living footsteps still cross very old stories. Their fur often shows a sharp white tip on the tail and black socks on the legs, so even in low light. With ears tuned like radar, One can hear a mouse under snow or dirt and suddenly leap high, diving nose first to pin it like a tiny rocket aimed by sound instead of sight. They cleverly stash extra food in small holes across their range, which turn the ground into a hidden pantry only they can read by smell. Red foxes are adaptable hunters, switching from live prey to fruit, insects, or even leftover human scraps, which allows them to ride out lean days without slowing down. Pairs sometimes play and wrestle like puppies, even as adults, and they teach young foxes to fight and dodge before life turns serious. Their calls are surprisingly harsh, barks, screams, and yips that can sound almost human at night. And just above this activity, in the nearby cottonwoods and willows, the yellow-billed cuckoo waits in the shade, listening for hidden prey. Its call sounds like a slow wooden rattle or a series of hollow knocks, so people sometimes hear it carry around old walls and trees without ever spotting the bird. Timing is everything for these birds, as they build flimsy nests, lay eggs, and raise fast-growing chicks during sudden insect booms. Chicks leave the nest quickly, climbing and hopping through branches while still partly covered in fuzz, unusually fast compared with many songbirds. And from these secretive hunters, in the trees above the ruins, Katmai National Park and Preserve unfolds, with steaming volcanoes and rivers alive with life. Here, the Valley of 10,000 Smokes was once so full of vents that the ground seemed to breathe, with steam columns shooting up from an ash floor that had buried entire valleys. And right at the centre of all this, brown bears dominate the foaming rivers and turn Katmai's salmon runs into one of the wildest feeding spectacles on Earth. During peak season, a single bear pulls in salmon so fast that scraps are left behind to feed eagles, gulls, and even enrich the soil. Cubs learn by copying their mother, awkwardly taking her fishing platform later, as if rehearsing for the next season's salmon rush. Some adults sit and wait at key spots, letting tired fish swim straight into their jaws, while others chase every jump with relentless precision. Scars, missing fur, and torn ears tell the story of fights over territory and fishing lanes, proof that survival here comes at a cost. Their sense of smell is so sharp that it can detect fish or carcasses far downriver or across the wind, which gives them an edge no human could match. And just beyond these river giants, sea otters float on their backs offshore and run a very different game in the cold salt water. Their fur is so thick that water almost never reaches the skin, but that only works if they groom non-stop, so a sea otter can spend hours each day just cleaning and fluffing itself. When hungry, they may eat a huge share of their own body weight in shellfish in a single day, which converts clams, crabs, and sea urchins into pure fuel to stay warm. Sea otters are clever animals. They keep a favourite rock tucked in loose skin under the arm like a built-in pocket, then reuse that same tool again and again to smash open hard shells on their chest. Mothers sometimes wrap their pups in kelp before diving, so the little ones float like tide balloons and do not drift away while she hunts below. Over time, in areas where sea otters return after being gone, kelp forests often grow back quickly because the otters wipe out sea urchins that were chewing the kelp down to stubs. And from these tool-using swimmers in the kelp and surf, the coast stretches onward to towering ice, dark water, and carved bays of Kenai Fjords National Park. More than half of this park remains covered in ice, yet some glaciers retreat so quickly that trail signs now stand where solid ice once sat. A massive ice field here feeds dozens of glaciers, sending frozen rivers down separate valleys toward the sea. Several of these glaciers break directly into saltwater and send chunks that can flip or roll without warning. In the same tight fjords where icebergs drift, orcas, humpbacks, sea otters, and seals hunt or hide among the cold waters. Over centuries, locals have woven tales of a long, snake-like something that vanishes in fog and black water between cliffs. High on the bare alpine hillsides, the hoary marmot dominates the summer silence, its sharp calls carrying across the valleys below. With frosted grey fur on top and darker underneath, it can almost vanish into loose rock from a distance, until it suddenly rises like a chunky grey and white statue. Despite eating only plants, they pack on so much fat in one short summer that they can sleep underground for months without taking a single bite. Their warning whistle is so loud and piercing that it can sound like someone blowing a metal referee whistle across the valley whenever a predator appears. Whole families share a single tunnel system, and on warm days, they line up on rocks to sun themselves before diving for cover at the first alarm call. They hibernate so long each year that they spend more time asleep than awake, a wild survival plan for an animal living right above active glaciers and cold seas. And from these rock-top whistlers in the high country, the story of sharp survival shifts to eroded spires, fossil beds, and open sky in Badlands National Park. Early visitors called this place Bad Land for a reason. Crumbly cliffs, no shade, and water so scarce it feels like the ground itself is punishing you. Erosion here works fast, reshaping hills and constantly revealing new skeletons, while quietly erasing others. Bones of saber-toothed cats, tiny horses, and pig-like creatures cover the ground, which turns it into a graveyard, frozen in time. Sounds twist through empty canyons, and sometimes hikers swear they hear distant hoofbeats, ghostly drums, or whispered voices carried by the wind. Legends whisper of the Badlands Banshee, a pale figure who screams along windy ridges, which links modern ghost stories to the park's prehistoric predators. As shadows fall over the fossil-filled gullies, massive American bison appear, grazing where early hunters once roamed. Their heads swing like living snowplows, smashing ice or shoving aside drifts just to reach a thin patch of grass. A bison that seems slow can suddenly explode forward faster than a racehorse, a reminder why humans and vehicles keep their distance. During the breeding season, bulls roar and clash so hard that dust clouds erupt. Calves blaze bright red among the dark herd, and they act as warning lights that their protectors will defend without hesitation. Adults can pivot and spin their whole body so fast during a charge that they sometimes hook and flip smaller animals right off the ground. Their winter coats insulate so well that snow can pile on their backs without melting. Even when they seem to wander randomly, they often follow old travel routes packed into the soil by countless hooves. They use invisible bison highways that have shaped the prairie for generations. Even their droppings spark life, feeding insects and plants that, in turn, lure birds and small mammals. And while they rule the grass below, bighorn sheep claim the steep country as they balance on rock spines where a single slip would be deadly. Almost immediately, they learn cliff life. Within days, lambs trail their mothers onto slopes where humans would need ropes. To make that possible, their hooves act like natural climbing shoes, with hard rims that bite tiny rock bumps and soft centres that grip ledges barely wider than a boot. As a result, predators that push too far onto this bad ground often back off or risk a fatal fall, turning our most dangerous terrain into their safest escape routes. Even so, a full-grown ram can slam its curled horns into a rival at highway speeds again and again, then walk away because its skull and spine work like built-in shock absorbers. Older males can carry horns as heavy as a bowling ball every day, yet still sprint uphill and leap gaps without tipping over. On top of that, their eyes sit wide enough to see almost all the way around their bodies, which makes side ambushes nearly impossible. In some herds, scientists can even read a ram's life story in those horns, where each growth ring records good years and hard ones like tree rings wrapped around a skull. And from these masters of knife-edge ridges, the story of sheer drops and dark stone plunges into the towering walls of Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park. It is called Black Canyon because its steep, narrow walls block most sunlight, which makes the rock look almost black and the river below feel closer to night, even in daytime. Meanwhile, locals speak of voices that ricochet between the cliffs that lingers long after the speaker has fallen silent. On cooler nights, even the rock seems alive, humming softly, as if the canyon itself is breathing. And as that low hum finally fades, the tale drifts away from cold stone and lingering darkness toward fire motion, and the restless ground of Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Here, without warning, the earth can split wide open and glowing rock erupts where a quiet road or forest once stood. Along the coast, the park even grows new land as molten lava meets the sea and locks itself solid in seconds. Still, locals whisper that anyone who carries a piece of this rock home invites strange misfortune, relieved only when it is mailed back with an apology. Some visitors go further, swearing they've seen a lone woman near the flows, gone the instant they dare to look twice, a warning shaped like a human. On certain nights, the craters glow so fiercely that clouds ignite from below, which turn the sky into a canvas cooked by an unseen flame. After all this heat and motion, it all comes back to one restless giant of fire, the ever-awake Kealauea volcano. Children once grew up under a sky that glowed at night, believing it was simply the way the weather worked. At times, the ground split open in backyards, molten rock advancing through quiet streets like a freight train too slow to escape, but too unstoppable to stop. During the fiercest eruptions, the shaking never ceased, so relentless that locals said it felt like sleeping atop a giant washing machine. Some visitors swear they glimpse a silent woman near the molten flows, only to turn again and find nothing. And then after the fury, the scene softens, drifting from rivers of fire to bursts of colour and song. The brilliant red-billed Leiothrix, alive and unafraid in the shadow of giants. This small songbird wears a bright red bill, yellow throat and chest, a greenish back, and flashes of orange and yellow on its wings and tail. It sings with so many notes that some say it sounds like 3 species packed into a single tiny body. Originally brought in as a cage bird, it escaped and now moves in wild flocks that weave together like a roaming choir among the trees. After watching this bright bird weave through the trees, the path continues toward the quiet tunnels of Mammoth Cave National Park. This cave system is so tangled that explorers keep discovering new side passages long after they thought the map was complete. Some tunnels stack on top of each other in layers, like a giant underground parking garage carved entirely by water. Guides share stories of tours where lights briefly failed and fleeting shapes moved in the dark. Even locals speak of strange creatures in the river and woods above the cave, as if the underground oddness seeps upward into the surface world. Leaving the tunnels, the night air carries a new sound, which signals the start of a hidden hunt. That soft, shaky trill often comes from the eastern screech owl, as it calls from a tree trunk that looks completely empty. This master of disguise can press itself flat against bark, close its eyes, and vanish into what seems like just another crack in the tree. It comes in two colour forms, grey and reddish, letting it match different types of bark like a hunter with two perfect camouflage coats. Instead of a loud hoot, its call resembles a tiny ghostly horse whinnying in the dark, enough to startle campers who aren't expecting it. It can snatch prey almost as large as its own body, yet switch to moths and beetles when smaller meals are easier to catch. Parents sometimes let their young practice hunting by dropping live prey nearby, so a single tree hollow becomes as a nighttime training ground. When the owl falls silent, the next singer waiting in these trees is the bright, chipper, tufted titmouse, ready to welcome the day. This little bird is bold enough to land near people, snatch a single seed, and fly off to hammer it open. It often steals fur from sleeping animals, dogs, squirrels, even rabbits, to line its nest. Sometimes it hides extra seeds in bark and leaves, then forgets a few, which lets new plants sprout from its lost snacks. Older chicks from the previous season may stay behind to help feed the new brood, so one tree hollow can resemble a lively family house rather than a simple nest. Its loud peter-peter call can spark a whole chorus, because other birds take cues from its alarms and curiosity to decide when to forage or flee. Birdwatchers even play recordings of its call to lure it in, since its irresistible urge to investigate anything new or suspicious rarely fails. From this bold, noisy, feathered neighbour, the path now turns north toward rock, water, and quiet channels in Voyageurs National Park. The area is so waterbound that many campsites and trails are unreachable by car. You have to paddle or ride a boat just to reach a sleeping spot. In winter, boats are traded for snowmobiles and skis, and they slide straight over frozen channels that were busy water roads in summer. Those same waterways once carried fur traders, hauling heavy loads in long canoes. Some locals whisper of eerie cries and shifting shapes along the tree line, connecting them to old tales of the Wendigo in these northern forests. With so many islands, bays and rocky points, it's easy to get turned around, so one wrong turn can turn a quick paddle into an unplanned night on the water. And along these shores and jagged edges, a new figure appears over the water, loud and sharp-beaked, the belted kingfisher. It has a large, shaggy crest, a blue-grey body, and a bold white band across its chest, with females adding a rusty band that makes them even more colourful than males. This bird can hover in mid-air like a tiny helicopter, then plunge straight down, and it vanishes into the lake after a fish. It often swallows its catch head first in one smooth motion, so the fins slip down without catching in its throat. Its nest isn't in a tree, but in a long tunnel it digs into a sandy bank, where chicks grow up in a dark hallway of dirt. Inside that tunnel, the air can fill with the smell of old fish as chicks spit out bones and scales right where they live. Around the park, you can sometimes hear its harsh rattle call long before spotting the bird, acting like a loud alarm for anyone on the water. And as the rattle fades across the bay into the reeds, attention drifts lower, toward the water's edge and a watchful green frog. This amphibian can sit so perfectly still that you only notice it when its eyes blink or it suddenly springs into motion. Its call sounds like someone plucking a loose banjo string, which makes a single one turn the whole bay into a warming up orchestra of broken notes. They will eat almost anything they can fit in their mouths, including smaller frogs, which transforms a quiet pond into a place where even cousins are not safe. Tadpoles may linger for a long time before transforming, so one pool can host giant tadpoles below, while smaller adults hunt above them. Herons, mink and large fish all hunt green frogs, yet they often wait at the edge and gamble that its jump is faster than any strike. And from this tense line between shore and water, the path leaves the lakes behind, turning toward the high, dry air and primeval rock at Great Basin National Park. Here, the land forms a massive bowl where water from places like Walker Lake never reaches the ocean, instead fading into salt flats or slipping quietly into the ground. Anchored to the Snake Range, the park lets you move fast between worlds, from dusty sagebrush to cool forest and bare stone. Nearby abandoned mines and ghost town remains fuel stories of clanking tools and distant voices, heard where no one should be. Below ground, Lehman Caves once glowed with open flames and crowded tours, and soot and scars still mark those early days. Higher up the Snake Range, trees twist and slow on naked rock, surviving where soil is thin and time moves differently. There, where most trees surrender, the oldest living trees called the bristle cone pines remain, and they shape the stone into a world almost entirely their own. They grow so slowly that a twist in the trunk small enough to cover with your hand may have taken longer to form than your entire life so far. In fact, a single tree can be mostly dead wood and still survive, and keep only a thin strip of living bark and green needles. Because their wood is dense, fallen logs can lie on the ground for ages without rotting away like ordinary trees. Scientists read the rings of fallen bristlecones like a deep-time journal to march droughts and cold snaps far beyond any written record. And from these slow-growing survivors, attention drops to the sun-warmed rocks below, perfect basking spots for the western fence lizard. At first glance it seems calm, yet this can drop its tail like a wriggling decoy, leaving a predator with the wrong prize while it bolts to safety. Once warmed by hot stone, its body heats so fast that it flips from sluggish to lightning quick in moments. Meanwhile, males flash bright blue patches on their bellies during push-up displays, which turns a simple workout into both a warning sign and a love signal. Along the way, it eats ticks along with other insects, and those ticks are far less likely to spread Lyme disease after feeding on this lizard's blood. From the moment they hatch, hatchlings get no help at all, yet arrive fully prepared to hunt, hide, and even pull the tail trick when danger strikes. Around the park, you often spot them first by the faint rustle of dry leaves, followed by a sudden freeze as camouflage beats running. And after watching the lizard race across bright rock, the journey continues downward into the shadowy depths of Carlsbad Caverns National Park. Deep inside, the big room opens suddenly, a single cavern so big that you could fit entire city blocks inside and still have space left over. Long before it was a cave, this place began as a massive fossil reef, and the stone once formed a crowded seafloor. Even today, some chambers carry scars from early bat guano mining, when floors were scraped for fertiliser long before park rules existed. Then on summer nights, clouds of bats spiral from the entrance, eat tons of insects, and quietly guard nearby farms like a living pest control force. Deeper inside, tiny white creatures without eyes spend their entire lives in darkness, never once seeing daylight. During tours, rangers sometimes cut the lights completely, and in that total blackness, people report feeling lost, even while standing still. From these silent rooms and rushing back clouds, it moves into open blue above the cliffs, the home ground of the peregrine falcon. This bird can dive so fast that by the time prey hears the tearing rush of air, the strike has already landed. To survive that speed, its nostrils hold special baffles, like tiny built-in brakes, to keep its lungs from flooding with air mid-plunge. Around the area, peregrines sometimes exploit bat flight paths and snatch birds drawn to the same insect swarms swirling at dusk. Rather than building nests, they scrape a shallow bowl on bare cliff ledges and raise chicks on stone that offers no margin for error. Even feeding becomes aerial, as parents may pluck prey in midair and pass pieces to their young without ever touching ground. After nearly vanishing under pesticide pressure, they adapted, claiming bridges, towers and skyscrapers as substitute cliffs, proof of their extreme flexibility. From open sky and rock ledges above, the next stop lies in shaded floodplain forest and boardwalks at Congaree National Park. Here, the park protects one of the last large stretches of old bottomland forest, where trees rise so high they feel like living green skyscrapers. Because floods regularly blanket the ground, fish can weave between tree trunks, then leave behind fertile nutrients as the water slowly pulls back. Some giants earn champion status, meaning their height and girth outmatch almost every other known tree of the same kind. On a few rare nights each year, fireflies flash in perfect sync, flipping entire sections of forest on and off like a single breathing light. Of course, the place is so wet and buggy that visitors joke the mosquito should be the park mascot, and rangers even track conditions with a famous mosquito meter. Long ago, people hid in this swamp to avoid capture, using water, mud and dense growth as a natural shield no outsider wanted to chase through. Down among those roots and soaked leaves, a slower resident works its way through flooded logs and shadowed ground. The eastern box turtle. When threatened, it snaps shut like a locked lunchbox, pulling in head and limbs until only a smooth, armoured wall meets any teeth. Most box turtles spend their entire lives in one small home range, so moving one far away is like dropping a person into a strange city with no map. Up close, each shell tells a different story, with patterns unique enough to work like living fingerprints. Surprisingly, it eats mushrooms that would poison people, suffers no harm, and later spreads their spores wherever it wanders. Some individuals live long enough to watch several human generations pass, all while pacing the same forest routes year after year. So when danger arrives, it often freezes instead of fleeing, placing its trust in armour over speed. While the eastern box turtle stays tight to roots and logs, another neighbour patrols the open pools above the mud, the roseate spoonbill. This bird hunts with touch as much as sight, sweeping its flat, spoon-shaped bill side to side until a fish or shrimp brushes it. Its vivid pink comes from pigments in the tiny crustaceans it consumes. When feeding in groups, they often form loose lines to stir up prey, so each bird secures more than it could alone. Their bare greenish heads prevent sticky mud and slime from clogging feathers, while they feed in shallow, messy waters. Teaspoons begin pale, gradually gaining deeper pink as they consume more pigment-rich prey over time. Often, they roost and nest alongside other large wading birds, creating mixed neighbourhoods of colour and activity in a single patch of trees. Where shallow waters sparkle with pink feathers, the world soon changes, rising to cool forests and twisting trails high above the valleys of Shenandoah National Park. This park exists because entire families were forced from mountain farms, leaving behind stone chimneys and graveyards that now peek from under leaf litter. Its name comes from the Shenandoah River, often said to mean daughter of the stars, so these same hills carry sky stories that glow after dusk. Along Skyline Drive, overlooks open suddenly. Then you stumble across old homesteads where fruit trees and daffodils bloom stubbornly amid the woods. Some cabins, like Corbin Cabin, hold ghost tales born from real deaths and hard lives, with campers whispering of cold spots and shifting shadows even on still evenings. Long, ghost forests of dead hemlocks stretch between living green their pale trunks standing like rows of bleached bones, grim reminders of tiny insect invasions. Bears, deer, and even bobcats wander close to trails, turning what seems a simple walk from the parking lot into a pulse-quickening wildlife encounter. In sunlit gaps between towering trees, a small flash of brilliant blue arrests the eye, the eastern bluebird. Despite the vivid hue, their feathers contain zero blue pigment. The colour comes entirely from how light scatters off microscopic structures. So crush one feather and it turns brown. Males sometimes kidnap chicks from neighbouring nests, bringing them to their own mate, tricking her into raising extra young, while the kidnapper's genes spread faster. When one catches a large beetle, it smashes the insect against a branch exactly 7 to 10 times to crack the shell into bite-sized pieces. Older siblings often delay leaving home, acting as unpaid babysitters, feeding younger brothers and sisters, because helping now means inheriting better territory later. When bluebirds find a dead bluebird, they gather around the body and sing for several minutes before flying away. Scientists still don't understand why they hold these gatherings or what the songs mean. As they dart and flash between branches above, wild turkeys move across the forest floor below, hunting for an entirely different set of meals. They can outrun most humans. They sprint faster than an average jogger, then launch straight up into trees when cornered. Males grow a strange rope of flesh called a snood over their beak, and females choose mates based on its length. Longer snoods signal better genes, leaving short snooded males out of the breeding game. When danger appears, one freezes completely and disappears into the forest so well you could walk within arm's reach without noticing it. Poults memorize their mother's unique cluck within hours and ignore all other adult calls for the rest of their lives. Each night they roost in trees because their feet lock automatically around branches. They physically cannot fall, even while asleep. Their head shifts colour like a living mood ring, flashing from bright red to snow white to electric blue depending on anger, fear, or excitement. Females lay eggs over several days rather than all at once, so the first chick can walk around while its siblings remain unhatched in the same nest. These birds remember the exact spots where they found food months ago and return to the same fallen logs and berry patches when the season changes. These ground guardians share their vast forest home with countless other creatures across the sprawling woods and coastline of Olympic National Park. Here, you can walk from dripping rainforest to bright alpine peaks to wild ocean shore, like flipping through 3 completely different worlds in a single day. Some trees grow so tall and wide that people joke a small car could drive through if the trunk were hollow. The park shelters a wild herd of elk, found almost nowhere else on Earth, survivors in a place where they vanished from many other regions. Hidden deep in the forests, Hikers report glowing orbs, distant drums, and fleeting shapes moving between trees that never fully appear on camera. Along lonely lakes and misty trails, visitors tell of sudden silence, missing time, and the unsettling sensation of being watched even when alone. Above treetops and along coastal waters, ospreys patrol the sky, diving like missiles into rivers and ocean inlets to snatch fish with lethal precision. Their toes can flip, grabbing fish with 2 claws in front and 2 in back, and their feet become living grappling hooks that pinch even the slipperiest catch. Special bumps on their foot pads act like tiny rubber studs, and it allows them lift a heavy, wet fish that would slip free from most other birds' talons. They slam into the water so hard they vanish beneath the surface, then burst back out, flap with force, and sometimes lift prey almost as heavy as themselves. Ospreys return to the same giant stick nests, year after year, pile branches until the nests are so massive they crush weak supports, forcing rebuilds nearby. While these fish hunting specialists rule the waterways here, thousands of miles east, others patrol the rocky shores and island-dotted bays surrounding Acadia National Park. A huge wildfire once burned through more than half the park, killing people and destroying homes, but it left the forest brighter, with trees growing in a mix of colours instead of plain green. Inside a coastal lighthouse, workers may have sealed a dead man behind the walls during construction, and every keeper afterward fell ill, suffered accidents, or died mysteriously. The park becomes so crowded on summer days that a reservation is required just to drive up the main mountain, like buying a ticket to a parking lot. On cliffs where iron ladders cling to sheer rock, hikers hear voices ahead in the fog, but when they reach the spot, nobody stands there. The sound drifts upward, just out of reach. As night falls, a new hunter glides through the sky with silent wings and sharp yellow eyes, the great horned owl. Their grip is so strong that it takes the force of a human pressing down with a full weight just to pry open a dead owl's talons. Once locked onto prey, nothing escapes. They kill and eat other owls regularly, including species nearly their own size, which makes them the only major predator that actively hunts relatives. Remarkably, they can rotate their heads over halfway in each direction, so if you walk a full circle around one, it never needs to move its body to track you. Females are bigger and heavier than males, a reversal of most birds, and she dominates the nest while he does most of the hunting. These owls have almost no sense of smell, which is why they regularly kill and eat skunks. They simply ignore the stench that would deter other predators. While they rule the above trees and cliffs, different hunters patrol the cold waters below, where harbour seals surface between rocks and kelp beds. They can hold their breath for nearly as long as you watch a full TV episode, diving so far down that the pressure would crush a human without special gear. Their whiskers act like underwater antennas, sensing tiny ripples from swimming fish, so they can hunt in pitch-black water or thick clouds of sand without using their eyes. Babies can swim within hours of birth, yet humans often steal them from beaches, mistaking their absence of a mother for abandonment. When a seal dives, its heart slows to just a few beats per minute, to save oxygen and extend underwater time. Orcas hunt these seals by charging straight onto beaches, snatching them from the sand and dragging them back into the waves before escape is possible. Mothers can recognise her pup's specific cry among hundreds of other babies screaming simultaneously on crowded beaches. On the cold northern shores, seals hunt beneath crashing waves, and far inland, dry cliffs and desert canyons hold homes carved into rock at Gila Cliff Dwellings National Monument. The people who built these cave homes had thriving farms and plenty of food in the valley, yet they suddenly left everything behind and moved into cliffs, as if hiding from something terrifying. They stayed in these caves for 20 or 30 years, then vanished, leaving pots and tools behind, as if they meant to come back but never did. Whatever drove them away was part of what researchers call the Great Collapse, when two entire civilizations across the southwest fell apart simultaneously for reasons still unexplained. The rooms sit tucked inside caves, halfway up sheer cliff faces, so high a fall would break bones, which keeps them nearly impregnable, but exhausting to reach every day. After abandonment, Apache warriors kept others away for centuries, inadvertently protecting the dwellings from treasure hunters and vandals who destroyed similar sites elsewhere. The abandoned caves still watch over a canyon where birds hunt and sing, including the bright red summer tanager moving through the same trees the cliff dwellers once saw. They eat bees and wasps on purpose, catching them mid-air and smashing them against branches to remove the stingers before swallowing whole. Males are fully red from head to tail, but they don't start that way. Young males look yellow like females, then slowly shift to orange, then patchy red and yellow, taking years to reach full crimson. They catch stinging insects that almost no other birds will touch, which gives them a private buffet while other species compete for common bugs. Every fall, these birds fly thousands of miles south to tropical forests for the winter, then somehow return to the exact same canyon the next spring without a map or GPS. Juveniles spend weeks practicing bee catching after leaving the nest because one wrong move can mean a sting to the face. While they hunt insects high in the canyon trees, different creatures root through the desert floor below, including tough, tusked javelina that crash through brush in small, noisy herds. Javelinas aren't actually pigs, they're more closely related to hippos, which explains why they look pig-like, but behave completely differently when observed. They eat cactus on purpose, chomping through spines and all, gaining both food and water at once, like biting into a spiky water bottle. Their teeth grow continuously throughout life, constantly lengthening like fingernails, and it stays sharp after years of grinding through tough desert plants. When danger appears, the herd stands as one, clicking their teeth and charging at threats most animals would flee from. Their smell is so strong that humans can detect and herd from far away. Their musk gland produces an odour sharp enough to make your nose wrinkle before you even see them. Babies can walk and follow the herd within hours of birth, like a human newborn suddenly standing and jogging around the hospital. From these dry desert canyons, the land opens to endless waterlogged sawgrass and slow-moving rivers at Everglades National Park. Water here moves so slowly that it takes months to travel from one end of the park to the other, like watching paint dry, except the paint is an entire river barely crawling forward. This is the only place on Earth where alligators and crocodiles share the same waters, hunting in territories that would normally belong to just one species. Invasive pythons have eaten so many mammals that deer, raccoons and rabbits are nearly gone from much of the park, with some populations dropping over 90%. Wading through the slow waters on long legs and hunting fish with a spear-like beak, the great blue heron stands motionless for minutes as prey swims within reach. Their necks contain a spring-loaded bone structure that works like a mousetrap. They keep it cocked back, then release it to shoot their head forward faster than the prey can react. Great blue herons swallow fish whole, and head first because eating them tail first would make the scales scrape backward down their throat, like trying to swallow a pine cone the wrong way. They produce a special powder from feathers on their chest, which they use like soap to scrub fish slime off themselves, essentially creating their own cleaning product. When bigger chicks in the nest get hungry and parents don't bring enough food, they push smaller siblings out to fall to their death below. These birds will eat almost anything they can fit down their throats: fish, frogs, snakes, baby alligators, rats and even other birds, which makes them among the swamp's least picky predators. Alligators hunt herons by hiding underwater near fishing spots and exploding upward to grab them by the legs and drag them under before they can escape. They hate other herons and will violently attack any that try to fish in their territory, yet they don't care about different bird species standing right next to them. During courtship, males snap their bills together so loudly it sounds like someone clapping wooden blocks, then stretch their necks up and down to flaunt their length. From these endless shallow waters, the land transforms completely to granite cliffs and towering sequoia groves at Kings Canyon National Park. Some of the trees here are so huge that one tree has enough wood to build dozens of houses, and its trunk is wide enough to fit 2 cars parked end to end. These trees were already towering giants when the Roman Empire existed, and they'll likely still stand centuries after we're all gone. The park protects a canyon that drops over a mile straight down, so it is deeper than many famous gorges people consider impressive. Among the towering sequoias and granite walls, a woodpecker with unusual habits hammers into bark and dead wood, the northern flicker that hunts ants instead of the usual tree insects. Unlike others that climb trees and peck for bugs in bark, they spend most of their time hopping on the ground like robins, and they dig into the dirt to reach ant colonies. Their tongues shoot out far past the end of their beaks, and it's coated in sticky spit that works like flypaper to catch ants. They hammer on metal roofs, pipes, and anything that makes the loudest noise possible, because louder drumming convinces other flickers that they're tougher and more attractive. European starlings steal the nest holes that flickers spend weeks carving out of trees, and the flickers must either fight or start a completely new hole from scratch. Because they hunt on open ground instead of hiding in trees, hawks can spot them more easily and dive down to grab them while they're distracted eating ants. Both parents take turns sitting on the eggs, but the dad always gets stuck with the night shift, while mom rests somewhere else until morning. Babies leave the nest after about a month, but keep begging their parents for food for weeks, because they still need to learn which dirt patches hold the best ant colonies. These are the national parks of the United States, a land of hidden wonders and remarkable architectural marvels. But there is still so much of our world left to see. Watch our next documentary and discover another place you may never have known existed.